Hello, my name is Philip Johnson, and I'm the author of Intellectual Property, Free Trade Agreements and the United Kingdom, the continuing influence of EU law. Now, what I argue in this book is that the various free trade agreements that have been entered by the United Kingdom since Brexit, or in fact, immediately after Brexit, will mean that EU law continues to have significant influence domestically. It also looks at free trade agreements more generally. But the critical thing here is the free trade agreements which the United Kingdom has entered, or almost all of them, are rolled over agreements with the European Union. And the European Union entered those agreements to expand EU law. And so by the United Kingdom adopting them, we've basically taken back those obligations which were once in directives and regulations and retain them in free trade agreements. So what I do in the book is I begin by looking at the role of EU law under the Withdrawal Act. I then move on to consider interpretation of free trade agreements and the roles of how they would be interpreted and how they might fit in the domestic and international framework. Then I look at the most favoured nation principle and national treatment before going on to consider each of the main areas of intellectual property law and what is might be described as locked in to UK law from EU law by reason of those free trade agreements. And sometimes it's not the agreements you think which have the greatest effect. Much discussion has always been of the agreement between the United Kingdom and the EU itself. But in fact, there are much more restrictive requirements in relation to intellectual property in the agreement between the UK and the Ukraine. And it's not necessarily individual agreements. Sometimes they're cumulative. So a requirement in one agreement is added to by a requirement in another agreement, and together they combine to form the effect very similar to that required by EU law under directives or regulations. And at the end of the book, I include what I call a calendar of laws, which I go through all the relevant regulations which have been retained and show in which free trade agreements those are referred to. So I hope you'll find the book very helpful and interesting, and that you'll consider buying it. And if you do, of course, reading it. Thank you. Bye.